I think you could still have a big market approach to doing things in a smaller community.
I can't wrap my head around everything that you do.
I like the adrenaline rush that directing gives you.
That's a quarter of a century, everybody.
The band's called Twisted Chrome.
Nobody talks to you about that in journalism, do they?
I don't think so.
An inside look at the people in front of and behind the cameras at NTV on this episode of Inside NTV.
Welcome to another episode of Inside NTV. Hi,
Hello.
Tim. There you go. This is where we meet folks that are on camera and off camera at NTV. Learn more about them, give you an inside look at them, so to speak. And right now I am joined by Chief Meteorologist
That's me.
Tim Reith. How are you today, Tim?
I'm good. It's hot out, so I'm getting happy.
Is that your fault?
I hope so. I'm fine with it.
Isn't that how that
You
works?
can blame me for the heat, just don't blame me for the snow.
Or the tornadoes. Or
Yeah, that too. It's been active.
I have a lot I'd like to talk to you about.
Oh boy, it's
So
exciting.
I want to start with, how did you get here? How did you get your start? How did you decide you wanted to get into this?
Okay. Honestly, I have pretty much wanted to do this since I was about 7 or 8 years old. That's what I always talked about doing, and I grew up on a farm in northern Kansas, and I still can remember that if you looked out to the west, you could see for about 2 miles. You could see every storm that came rolling in, so I would just sit out there and watch storms come rolling in. We had a huge storm in 92 that had 116 mile per hour winds.
Wow.
That came tearing through our area. And then the next year was the Mississippi floods that flooded everything. And those two kind of weather events really got me going. So I went to the University of Kansas and got my Bachelor's of Science, of Atmospheric Science, my meteorology degree. Kind of piddled around for a while, couldn't find a job. Took forever. Actually ended up working in Canada for 3 months.
Wow.
Before coming back to Lawrence. I got a job at the local cable station in Lawrence, Kansas, and then got the job here.
And you started here what year?
2006.
2006. And when you got here in 06, were you morning, weekend, or what was
Morning.
your shift? Morning. Okay.
Yeah, I was the morning person here for about almost 18 years.
Yeah.
And now I have transitioned night side. I grew up watching NTV. I grew up watching Bob Geiger. I watched, the old rotary antenna.
Mm.
Pre-cable and satellite and all that stuff. No, we could get about 3 or 4 stations on a good day, and this was one of them. I grew up watching this station.
So that makes an extra specialness to it, to be able to be, not just work here, but to be the chief and in charge of the weather department here.
Yeah, I never met Bob, but he was a local legend. Like I said, I grew up. I remember watching him on the noon show all the time. I'd always watch him on the noon show, and yeah, it's kind of neat to kind of keep that legacy going.
It
really is.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not from here, but still, I understand the importance of not just local news and local weather to folks out here, but this place in general.
Yeah.
Just NTV is important.
It's got a very real kind of small town vibe to us, I feel, which collaborates well with. I mean, we cover so many counties that there's all those tiny little towns dotted around. It just kind of has that feel to it. So.
I was going to say, I mean, we can get into the weather part of it, but you also have to know your geography and your pronunciations.
I don't get them all right all the time, thanks to Alexis. It's not Ainsley, it's Ansley. Which is what I was saying all along till Alexis told me wrong. No, there's all the hardest part of Nebraska is all the tiny little square counties that are all exactly the same.
Mm.
You get just straight north of Broken Bow, there's Loop, there's Garfield, there's all those, there's Wheeler, and those get a little tricky sometimes. Sometimes I have to cheat and kind of look up, okay, that's the one. Make sure.
You've gone through a lot of technology yourself, even just from 2006.
Oh, yeah.
Can you explain where you came from then to where we're at now in the weather department?
Well, it's just like a lot of things. It's just software updates. Your internet has gotten faster. Your computers have gotten faster. It's the same thing with the weather department, the graphics making. It's just, it's like a video game. You go back to the original Nintendo, it's 8-bit and blah, blah, blah. Now look where we're at. And it's just kind of, we follow the same process here in the Weather Center. Now we've got, we use Barron is the weather company that we use. And so they have technology. They're especially very radar driven. So we have a lot of neat little tools that we can use on radar. And, back when I was growing up, you'd never see anybody showing the stuff we show on TV now, velocities and trying to find the couplet. At best, you'd find a hook echo. So No, things have come a long ways. That's for sure.
Because you're able to bring up, I think it's the velocity
Yeah.
radar with the green and the red,
Yes.
and figure out exactly where that tornado is probably going to happen.
Yeah, and I had a viewer ask me, what does that all mean? Well, it's just the colors basically show you direction, and where you find those two directions that are side by side means you've got rotation in there, and you could possibly have a tornado. So they just confirmed that we had a tornado up in Custer County last Friday, that touched down briefly. So,
and I will tell you that your stuff with the greens and the reds, I sound like Seth Denny, makes it taught me something, because watching you do it now, I understand. I mean, I don't totally understand all the meteorology stuff, but I get that's what that means. Like I understand what I'm saying is you explain it in a way that somebody who doesn't know his weather that well gets it.
That's probably one of the best compliments I could get, actually. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not just trying to get up there and be like, oh, we've got, here's what the Weather Service is saying, and read off a piece of paper. I want to engage the viewers so they're watching, and we've kind of switched gears a little bit to where, we try to stay on a little bit longer now with tornado warnings, because especially this year's been a little bit interesting. First of all, it's one of the more active years we've had in a while. But we've had several instances where it's not your classic, oh, you've got one storm sitting out there. It's a classic supercell that's producing a tornado. We've had these lines of storms that produce multiple quick, shorter-lived tornadoes. So, there have been multiple times we've been on the air and we've had a tornado warning, and then all of a sudden something else starts to show up, and we'll be like, hey, we better watch this. And then here comes another tornado warning. And that's just, the lead time you can give. The more lead time, obviously, the better. So.
And from a TV standpoint, if those of you don't totally grasp everything, the National Weather Service puts out the warnings and the watches officially, which end up on your maps and you show to people. But when you can, I'm not wanting to downplay anything that the NWS does, because they're super important, probably one of the most important federal agencies out there. But when you can get out ahead of them on live television and be able to show this is going to happen, and 5 minutes later, boom, watch, or boom, warning.
Well, and part of that, especially when it comes to like watches, we're in constant communication now. With the National Weather Service, which is fantastic. There's been an evolution of communication, which is it's amazing. So now we communicate directly quite a bit. They use Slack for that. But a lot of times you have to keep in mind, Weather Service, they've got to type those warnings out. They've got to, movement. They have a lot to do. Meanwhile, I'm on there just talking about, say, this one. Oh, we better watch this one. Now it comes up. So it's a hand-in-hand partnership with us, in my opinion. And not everybody feels this way, but in my opinion, broadcast meteorology and the National Weather Service, it's a partnership. They put out the information. It's my job to get that information and make sure as many people see it as possible.
What do you have in all your time at NTV? Do you have favorite's the wrong word, but do you have a storm or a system or a day that stands out to you?
I would say, and this is the story I tell everybody, and I'm terrible with dates. My mind does not work that way. I'm not good. I can tell you it was, I think, June of 2008.
Okay.
Because my first daughter was born in January of 2008. And so we had a pretty good setup. And I remember so many details, but I remember sitting at the computer, I was forecasting, and in came the bosses, news director, general manager, and they said, what do we got? And I showed them some stuff, and I said, well, if this comes together, I think we should be concerned. And I still remember them, they looked at each other and go, he could be full of it. We'd never know. I said, whatever, okay. So we went in, and I had to go into Kearney for my daughter's doctor's appointment. On the way out, I got called back to the station. Well, that was the night Kearney got hit by a tornado. Took out quite a bit of the fairgrounds.
Yep. In the airport, didn't it?
Yeah, it did a lot of damage. Yep. Thankfully, nobody was seriously hurt. But I remember that because about a week later, I had somebody message me and said, I was supposed to go to Kearney that night. I had something to do, and because I watched you that morning, I didn't go. Wow. And she said, I would have been in Kearney right as that was coming through. Wow. And that always made me feel really good, because that's your end goal.
Yeah.
That's what you always want to do. So that's one that really stands out as one that just, I feel like I really did my job well that day.
If you ever get upset because your show is being preempted because this man is on television.
Sorry.
One, he doesn't want to have to do it.
I really don't.
Two, the mission is not to hear himself talk. The mission is to save people's lives.
No, I don't. I'm like everybody else. I hate hearing myself talk. I hate my own voice.
You're on television
I know.
every
It doesn't
day.
mean I like it though.
Oh, come on.
I mean, I like it. I don't like this voice.
Another one that I'm thinking of off the top of my head that I wanted to mention to you and talk to you about, the 2019 Kearney floods.
Oh man, that was wild.
I believe that was July, and you were on the air as that just inundated the southern part of the city.
That was weird. It really was, because I remember I had gone again. You got to remember working the morning shift. I went home for lunch break at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
that's when I take lunch break. And so I was coming back from lunch break, and get settled into the weather center, and start to see reports that we've got flooding in Kearney. You got to keep in mind it wasn't raining then; it had rained the night before. There was a storm that just dumped rain along the Turkey Creek, I think it was, northwest of Kearney, and all that water went in there. And so we're like, okay, well then pretty soon all of a sudden, we had our camera on it, and you could just see the water coming up. And so we hopped on, and I don't know how long we were on air. I think it was a good 45 minutes to almost an hour, just talking about and watching this water. There were, just watching people get rescued with payloaders and things. It was such a unique circumstance, and such a anomaly almost to have it happen like that. So yeah, that was a weird one.
That coverage of that flood is on the NTV News YouTube page of you being on. So if you're hunting around after you get done watching this, go ahead and check that out, because it almost looks unworldly.
It was weird,
because that was the year of the big floods of 2019, and in March, I believe, was when a lot of the rural area north had really bad floods, and Steve White was there to cover a lot of that, as well as other reporters. But the July Kearney stuff, and that day, it's
so weird because they're flooded for just completely different reasons. One, because it was so cold, and one because, well, it got hot and it dumped a lot of rain. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So they both were separate incidents, but they happened for opposite reasons.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Wow. You are not just a meteorologist. You're not just the chief meteorologist, but you have a seal. Can you tell me about that?
I have the American Meteorological Society seal of approval. It's something that I can't remember. I don't know the exact year they started it, but it was kind of a way to just show that somebody had put in a little extra work, and that they, just to make you kind of a verified source almost. And they've kind of adjusted and tweaked it since then. But that was just something that I remember growing up. I remember seeing it, and it was always a goal of mine to get it. And so when I got it, and I'm not sure what the year was, but that's pretty significant for me. It was a goal that I'd always had, and I was pretty proud to get it.
This is going to be a silly question, I guess. But what's the
No
difference?
such thing.
What's the difference between working the morning shift and the evening shift?
More sleep.
Which one?
I get a lot more sleep on the evening shift, or at least better sleep. Although with these storms lately, me and Kyle, our morning guy now, we've like ships in the night now. The morning shift, I did it for almost 18 years, and it was, wake up at 2:30 in the morning, go to work, get here by 3. I usually would go home, take a nap, and then try to get to bed sometime between 8 and 9, but I'd have softball games with my kids and whatnot. I would get almost the same amount of sleep, but there's just a difference. There's a difference between waking up at 2:30 in the morning and waking up at, say, 8 or 8:30. And I didn't realize how tired I was, to be honest. But yeah, a little more sleep.
What did it mean to you when you got the call to say you're going to 5, 6, and 10?
It meant a lot. This was always, I think for most people, this is the goal. And for me, it's not necessarily about being chief.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being able to cover the storms and get that information out, which, the morning show is more about preparing people for them. And then the evening show, it's about, okay, it's happening and we're going to get that information out. So, I get that, and I still find it weird, like, oh, I'm the chief. Like, for me, it wasn't so much about becoming the chief. It was just about getting that to that point in my career where I can be the person that's out there telling people to seek shelter, talk about these warnings, and just be like, hey, that I'm a trustworthy source for them. And that means a lot. That, I have people come and go, oh my gosh, thank you so much for your covers on this. And that really is, that's what it's about for me.
So something else I want to get to before I forget Outside of work,
Yeah,
you are a Chicago Bears fan.
I am.
What makes you a Chicago Bears fan?
I don't know. I've been beaten down so much now. It's too late. I'm too far in my life. No, just I was about 6, 7 years old when the '85 Bears were making their run, and the Bears were so good in that time stretch. So when I was in that very impressionable age, they were on a lot, and that was just the team I grabbed onto. And I mean, if for nothing else, I'm through thick and thin. I have stuck with them, and I'm too far now to avoid it or to jump ship or to find a new team. So it's a source of pride for me now that I've stuck with them this long, and I will continue to do so.
Am I right in saying that you made the journey to Kansas City for the draft?
Yeah, that was cool.
To root on your Bears?
Yeah, a couple years ago, me and some buddies went down to the NFL draft. I've got a group of friends that we love football. We love to get together for the draft. We've done it for years. And so then when they started moving the NFL draft around and they said it was coming to Kansas City, I was like, oh, we got to go. So me and some buddies went, and I'm glad I did it. It was exhausting. We got there like 9:30 in the morning, left at like 11 that night.
Oh,
a lot of standing, but it was cool. It was a neat event. A lot of people.
Do you think that you'll ever see them get to where you want them to get?
I hope so. Still haven't gotten over the 06 Super Bowl against the Colts, but one day I'll get there. Darn you, Peyton Manning.
That's right. You were in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't that crazy long ago.
No,
less than 20 years.
They're the team that makes the playoffs like every 10 years, and they'll have like 2 good years, and then they just drop off the face of the earth again. So someday.
Now that Dave's Detroit Lions are better,
someday it's got to happen.
Steve's Minnesota Vikings trying to figure stuff out.
We got the whole NFC North represented here at the station.
We have some Packer fans. Kyle's a Packer fan, so there you go. That's a mixed weather department.
I still can't believe we let us hire him.
Oh, dear.
Kyle's great, by the way. He's great.
Another question. The beard. Now, I'm sitting here with facial hair, and I have a whole totally different reason that doesn't matter in this podcast why I have mine. But for a long time, when you were here at NTV, you were clean-shaven.
I was.
What caused you to go the bearded route?
So, I can't remember dates. I'm not good at years. I couldn't even tell you how long I've had this now. Long enough that my youngest daughter, who's 12, doesn't really have any recollection of me without it. But so one year, I decided to do. Ooh, what are we doing back there?
We got
a little loud back there. One year, I decided to do No Shave November.
Okay.
And we did it on air. I just wouldn't shave for the month, and I would show cancer pictures from viewers. They would send in pictures of people who were survivors or lost their battle with cancer. And cancer's unfortunately been a large part of my family. I lost my mother to cancer and my aunt to cancer about 4 years ago now. And so I started doing that just as just to bring awareness. Because again, cancer impacts so many people, if not everybody. And it's been unfortunately a large part of my life. And so I'd go through November, then I would shave it. And after about 3 years of doing that, I had somebody go, boy, that really looks good on you. And so I talked to the boss and I said, hey, I'm kind of thinking about keeping this. And I remember he goes, if anybody complains, you got to shave it off. I said, okay. I said, that's fine. I don't really care. But nobody complained. Nobody had a problem with it. So I rolled with it. And here, like I said, I don't think my youngest daughter even remembers me without a beard. So Babyface Tim makes an appearance on some promos. And it's weird. It's weird.
He almost looks like a different person.
It is.
Well, the good news for you is we have a different boss from then, so that probably doesn't still hold. So
it's here to stay.
If anybody out there wants to complain, you can, but
it's not going to do any good now. There you go. I'm losing it up here. I got to keep it here. So come on.
I'm starting to face that same problem, but what? I'm sure since 06 you've had a few. What bloopers or weirdness can you remember in your time on the air?
Oh boy.
Whether they're fun or just strange.
On air, I remember I've dropped my clicker a few times, which is always awkward. I tend to fiddle with it.
Okay.
I tend to kind of keep my hands busy sometimes. I've worked on that, but at first, I would drop it, like, well, this is embarrassing. So then you have to bend down on camera and pick it up and be like, sorry. Thankfully, I haven't had anything too crazy. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think. We've had random things will pop up behind me on camera. Had people walk in front of the camera while I'm doing weather. I'm like, what are you doing here? Come on. I'm a very lighthearted guy, so I'll point out things that I will poke fun at myself all the time. So, Mike's dying, saying the wrong town or the wrong county, or just flubs. Or those nights where you only get like 2.5 hours sleep, and I'm just sitting there like a walking zombie and can't even remember what I just said. So,
especially on the morning show at 5:10 a.m.
Yeah. Coincidentally enough, I worked the morning shift for almost 18 years, and I only overslept once, and I still made it on air on time.
Look at that.
I walked in the building at 4:57, and we went on at 5, but gosh darn it, I made it. I was here.
That's a pretty strong record.
A lot of alarms. A lot of alarms.
How many did you have?
I had 3.
3?
And then
Okay.
I'd have one on my Fitbit, so technically 4.
Wow.
Just to be safe.
Nice.
Gotta be safe.
Talk to Sarah about that too. She has to do similar stuff.
It's
She's
a different.
She's had a longer drive than you did,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you still got to get up really early.
Yeah, it's a different world at that time of night. It really is.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine doing that. And
Oh.
you survived. You're here.
I'm getting a little thin up here, a little gray here, but I survived.
Tell us, without getting into too much personal stuff, tell us a little bit about your family, because you mentioned softball and all that fun stuff.
I've been married to my wife for 20 years. We met in high school. We both grew up in the same area. We've been together for a long time. 2 daughters, 16 and a 12-year-old, so a junior and a 7th grader now. They play a lot of softball. So I coached a lot of my oldest daughter's softball and basketball games and things like that. Really enjoyed doing that quite a bit. We do a lot of camping in the summertime. We like to go out, to the area. Fort Kearny's great, but we were down at Harlan for Memorial Weekend. So if you ever see me out and about, feel free to say hi. It's no big deal.
Will you sign an autograph or two?
If I have to. It ain't worth anything. But no, we do a lot of camping, try to hit some spots and just, relax while the weather's warm. We're very much a warm weather family. So
How good of a coach are you?
not great.
Do you ever yell at an ump or a referee?
No, not for the most part. I didn't. I always really try to set a good example for the kids, because I was fortunate enough that I coached for, my oldest daughter. I coached her from about 4th or 5th grade all the way up to basically 8th grade. Never had really any issues with parents.
Oh, nice.
The kids were great, and no, for the most part, just try to have fun. They get a lot of pressure on them at a pretty young age right away, so I just always try to keep it pretty loose. And that's probably why I wasn't a very good coach. So I was more about having fun than I was, we have to win. So I
ask a version of this question to a lot of folks, especially those of you who are veterans and have been around a little bit. What kind of advice would you give to a guy or a gal out there that is wanting to get in and do what you do?
That's a good question. I would say, put the work in, obviously. I mean, you have to. That's the way it works. But put the work in. Don't be afraid to be yourself. It took me a while to find myself on air, and we've had several people who've come in that I've had to work with, and they start pretty raw, and it's all about finding your voice. And I tell them that all the time. And I still remember Maria. She started, and she was really rough on air. She'd never done this. She was still going to college. She was still getting her degree. So she had a lot going on, and she was kind of rough, and I think she was getting pretty frustrated. And I just remember one day I said, listen, once you find your voice, once you find your rhythm of how you do things, you're going to take off. And I still remember all of a sudden one week I was like, there it is. And you could just see it. You could see that she got comfortable with her pace, with who she is and how she's going to present the way. And she just took off. Now she's thriving down in Texas. She's doing phenomenal. So just find yourself. You're going to get inundated with all this advice and all this constructive criticism, and soak it in, but find yourself. And I think that's where that'll really help you take off.
That's awesome. Well, you have a forecast or 2 or 3 or 4 to get to.
Yeah, I got a little bit. It's quiet today, but might get a little more active later in the week, so we'll see.
Yeah, we couldn't do this when there were tornado warnings and stuff.
It's been a busy stretch. He asked me today. I said, Tuesday should be good. It looks quiet. So it's a Tuesday when we're doing this.
Well, we'll let you get back to your 7 computers or whatever it is you've got going on.
I got a few back here. I only use like 3 of them, so it's fine.
Tim, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully everybody out there enjoyed. And we'll have another episode of Inside NTV coming up next week. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.